Hello, dear viewer. I've got a scary story for you today, courtesy of Anthony Kiedis. That's right, I bought the book. Let's open to a random page, shall we? Ah, this will do wonders. When you're doing a lot of alcohol or cocaine, your thinking becomes skewed, and you're willing to do a lot of things you normally wouldn't. I don't know if sleeping with a different girl more than half the time on tour while the love of my life was back in LA was due to drug-impaired judgment, though at that point in my life I had no morals. Even though I never stopped loving Jennifer, and I'd think about her every day and call her whenever I could afford it, I had no problem cheating on her. It became a momentum thing. If you don't actively seek out women, you lose that momentum. And even if you change your mind and decide you want to get laid, it becomes tough. But when it's happening every night, you're in that zone. It becomes effortless, especially when you're the center of attention. That's what I wanted at that point in my life. It would change a few years later. The instant that energy shifted and there was no effort required to have sex with girls because I was in a known band was the instant I stopped wanting to have sex with them. When we were punk rockers no one had heard of, I wanted to grab people's attention and show them who I was. It was all fun, and it made sense, and I didn't feel weird about it. Of course, I was telling Jennifer I was faithful. So I was not only cheating, but also lying. But I was an out-of-control, selfish egomaniac, out to get mine morning, noon, and night. Sometimes it was tricky to get yours, especially when we were at least two to a room. You'd have to be creative. Sometimes you could use the bathroom backstage or a room at an after-show party. When I was rooming with Lindy, which I did on occasion, it was no problem. One night I ran into this girl from Nebraska. It was ironic because Nebraska is the corn state, and she had pubic hair that resembled the price texture of corn silk. You meet a lot of different pubic hair along the way. The nappy, the long, the short, the shaved, whatever. This girl had black corn silk growing out of her pubic mound. Also, she was a sweetheart, mild-mannered, not a hussy, not a whore, not a trampy backstage girl of any kind. I brought her back to our room, and Lindy was unflappable. He just lay there in his bed, put on his earplugs and eye mask, and zoned out. Sometimes I combined my passion for drugs and girls. We had just played in South Carolina, and I was a little drunk, so I went straight into a coke hunt. The bartender at the club found me half a gram, and I did it all too soon. So I was horny beyond control when this fat girl approached me. She was probably about 5'3", with an unusual chunky shape. She had a fairly large girth, and her tits were like enormous missiles that projected out from her elbows at the end of her hands. She was kind of pretty, though. Not the type of girl I'd ever hit on before, but she had our album, and she told me I was her favorite poet of all time. Poet. Generous. And she gave me this letter that, among other things, suggested my dick was a dolphin and her pussy was the ocean, and I had to go for a swim in that ocean. She also wrote that she worshipped the ground I walked on, and that she was my servant and she'd do anything for me. "Can you get me some coke?" I asked. Sure she could. We just had to drive to her uncle's trailer in the next county. We drove out there, and there were guns and beer bottles and cigarettes and poker. A real southern drug-dealing trailer park community. She got the coke, and we went back to her little apartment and did it all. As soon as we finished that coke, all of the clothes came off right away, and I had some of the best road sex imaginable with the most unlikely candidate. Because she wasn't typically hot, there was no pressure. Whatever happened, happened. And we went for it all night with her big, beautiful, pillowy breast and her crazy extra-wide body shape. The whole time we were fucking, she was telling me this was her dream come true, but not in a way that made it unpleasant. Later, I found that she had put 20 hits of acid in that letter to me, so I was able to barter it in the next town for some coke. By the time we got to New Orleans, the tour was winding down, but the excitement level was ramped up. We were playing at one of the old World's Fair buildings, and we had luxurious backstage accommodations, including showers and couches and wall-to-wall carpeting. We had finished the set when a lovely young woman wandered into our dressing room. She had bleached blonde hair and fire engine red lips and giant eyelashes that made her look like a reincarnated southern version of Marilyn Monroe. As I was prone to do at the time, I made my move before anyone else could even talk to her. I grabbed her hand and pulled her into the bathroom and asked her if she could keep me company while I took a shower. Once I got into the shower, she went into an impeccable rendition of Marilyn singing Happy Birthday to JFK. I got out of the shower, ready to go. She immediately threw off her clothes and we made love on the floor. I had known the girl for 5 minutes, but I was certain of my affection for her. We spent the night together, and I found out more about her, including the fact that she went to Catholic school. She would be the inspiration for a later song, Catholic Schoolgirls Rule. The next day, we drove to Baton Rouge, and of course, she came with us. After we got off stage, she came up to me and said, "I have something to tell you." This is where the story gets real scary, dear viewer. My father's the chief of police, and the entire state of Louisiana is looking for me because I've gone missing. Oh, and besides that, I'm only 14. I wasn't incredibly scared because in my somewhat deluded mind, I knew that if she told the chief of police that she was in love with me, he wasn't going to have me taken out to a field and shot. But I did want to get her the hell back home right away. So we had sex one more time, and she gave me an interesting compliment that I never forgot. She said, "When you make love to me, it's like you're a professional." I told her that she could give herself a little more time, and she'd realized that it was because she didn't have much to compare it to. And I put her on a bus and sent her back to New Orleans. Scariest part of that story, dear viewer, is that he faced no repercussions. Isn't that some crazy shit? Thanks for watching.